Well, hello everyone, this is Snoo. Thanks for stopping by. Today I want to bring you a proper showcase video for my current and final build of the League 3.22. This is my most advanced Magic Find Warrior Archetype build to date, I think. And if you're wondering why I haven't come out with a video yet, even though I've been playing with it for the better part of 2 weeks now, that's honestly because I really felt like this one deserved all the polish. All the fine-tuning, the finished touches, the beginning, middle, end, testing. I really didn't want to bring this one out prematurely. And it's not because I was afraid of making it unserviceable or, too soon for the community as a guide. Really, this is more of a passion project video. It's like a 7 to 8 mirror build. It is completely out of reach for, let's face it, 99.999% of the community, and it's not so much about me saying, hey guys, you should follow this build and do this too. It's more about, hey guys, look at what I was able to do this league, and I'm really just excited to share it with you. So, I hope you enjoy the video. It's gonna be a long one. Please strap yourself in. There's a huge amount of detail. It's quite a challenging build to pull off, getting all the right gear, a lot of moving parts. Some of it had to be self-crafted, in fact. And yeah, we're going to go over the genesis of the build, where it came from. It all started last league, as a matter of fact. Then I'll give you a map showcase. We'll talk mostly about the build, how it functions. We'll go over the gear, the gems, the jewels, passives, and path of building, and then any final thoughts. Gotta get in there. So yeah, it's going to be a long video, and in advance, thanks for watching. Alright, so, where did this build come from? This is, yet again, a Sublime Vision build. The Sublime Vision Jewel from Uber Shaper is something I played around with for the first time last league. It was I believe it was a Scorching Magic Find Lightning Arrow Deadeye with a lot of Mana Forge length and an elemental character, pure elemental mirror tier bow at the time. And I felt like that was quite an awesome build. Well, Vengeance Cascade got nerfed massively, and then they decided to give us a couple of free projectiles, virtually for free, on the passive skill tree, and a whole bunch of imbalanced projectile speed through tattoos, and voila, what do you know? We were right back to it's a tornado shot league. So, knew I needed to make a tornado shot character this time around. I had basically decided last league I wanted to recreate the Sublime Vision tech with a Magic Find Ultra Endgame build. However, I wanted to do it with Hatred next time, so I knew I was going to do a physical to element conversion build. So the primary tech of the build would revolve around this jewel right here, which forces Hatred to also give Brittle as well as Chill and Freeze, with the enormous downside, oh yeah, and 40% increased effect, with the enormous downside of not allowing Grace, Purity of Elements, Vitality, or any other aura for that matter, on the build, which in turn opens up the possibility of using all kinds of really interesting links that you wouldn't normally see on a Mana Forge arrow, such as this 6 link that I don't think anyone else had ever come with up to date, which is not the case for the 4 link that I'm showing now. That is a very common 4 link. But we're going to save that for a little while. That's just kind of the, the appetizer, if you will, for this build. Yeah. So I knew this was going to require super high budget. It was going to require a physical bow. I would probably want to get the mirror tier bow, the best bow in the league, which ironically is not faux wing anymore as of yesterday. When Spicy Sushi managed to craft an even better one, yeah, I'll probably get it. But for the meantime, this is like 99% as good. And also a mirror tier quiver is in play as well. And unlike previous builds, I am doing the weapon swap tech that I mentioned in previous video. That was not a joke or not a one-off thing. That is me fundamentally changing the way I play. So yes, indeed, I do the whole shield charge thing, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but not in major detail because, as I just mentioned, I'd already come out with a video detailing that. But you can see here, we got Tornado Shot, and we got Lightning Arrow flying out. We got Ice Shot also involved, and then we even have Frenzy and Ensnaring Arrow occasionally going off. So that is the build. It packs a whole ton of punch, a lot of damage, over 100 million damage in the path of building, which just to give you some perspective, with a similar PoB setup that I had last league, this is doing at least like 4 times as much damage that the build last league was doing. Part of the advantage to pushing a phys to element conversion build all the way. That's not counting inspired learning buffs as well. But let me give you a proper map showcase here. So this is just kind of Wandering Path. This is kind of the same strat that I've been running for most of the league now, ghosting. And of course, ghosting is a big part of this league, at least for me, not for everybody. But you can see I'm running Torment, so the maps are quite complicated to do based on how I'm doing them. But I will show you. And as I talk through this map, it's not going to be really about the strategy. It's going to be about how the build plays, how it functions. So I start off the build not with this setup. I have basically 3 different amulets I might use, but only 2 that I really choose. Defiance of Destiny is a terrific defensive amulet now. I have to talk about this ahead of time. And that's because it gives 42% of missing unreserved life before you're hit by an enemy. So any little hit is basically not going to kill you unless it were to one-shot you. And this is especially potent with Petrified Blood and then Progenesis tied in as well with a decent amount of recovery. That makes this amulet extremely strong. And then I have Infused Flesh because one of the advantages of swapping the amulet is I can anoint it with a different anointment. And not focus on offense, but focus on defense. So this is some recoup built in. I think probably the most powerful anointment that I can have, especially since I have 0 recoup otherwise. So I will be shield charging around, and I will get more than just the defense of the shield. I will get 99 life on block. I'll get Fortify. I'll get endurance charges. I'll get all kinds of great stuff. And we'll talk about how I'm able to get all those things when we examine the links. But just for now, here, let me kind of make sure I focus a little bit on actually doing a good job, which I'm kind of not doing at the moment. But here, we'll grab the Ghost. Really not that hard when you're able to focus on it. You can see that the 20 Fortify is standing strong, getting all the Ghost. Not really at any risk of dying here. Some maps are harder than others. And this is the Wandering Path map. And I am using a pretty tight regex for these maps to make sure they're not too difficult. I cannot run Physical or Element Reflect. I don't like running no regen because that bricks Berserk. I don't like running monsters take less critical damage because that's a huge portion of my damage. And I don't like running less chance to block because then my block chance is 0, and then the whole ghosting thing with the shield is actually not all that great after that. So I think I've already scouted the map pretty well. All of the influence packs unlocked. All of the ghosts have been found and grabbed, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And so we come back down. I got a Deli Mirror forced in every map, and I put in my offensive option amulet, which is quite offensive with a bit of quantity added. And now I'm going to use my bow. Okay, so I have Tornado Shot going out, and then I have a bunch of Lightning Arrow on a life tap Mana Forge setup. It's also giving an enormous amount of shock. It's going to be hard for you to detect the degree of Brittle and shock going out. Sometimes it's from Tornado Shot, sometimes from Lightning Arrow. Depends on which hits get double damage, because I do have 5% chance to do double damage on basically every attack. I can swap and start, shield charging, get some Fortify again, and then revert back to attacking with the bow. Going to take mostly quantity and rarity. The Deli Mirror is not slowed down in any way. This is really fast-moving Deli Mirror. Getting a lot of great altars here. Okay, but, get a little bit of Fortify up to the last room, which is nice. It helped make me extra tanky. Wow. Okay, this is some really nice things. And I've already been in there, so I don't need to go back in there. And basically all of the native monsters on the map are already dead. Forcing Ritual on these maps as well. That has more to do with the strategy, so I'm not really going to comment on that. Now, I'm not going to use the shield charge stuff right here, but I'm just going to attack. You can see tornado shots. There's 10 projectiles going out. Time to open some strong boxes. All the altars are gotten, and my advantage for doing it that way was I get a 71% chance to duplicate divination cards on every strongbox, which is makes me feel good. Makes me feel good about clearing the map this way, and a whole bunch of extra quantity and rarity. The daily mirrors, of course, getting to expiration date here. I want you to pay close attention to my health pool here. You'll notice that the divination distillate is up and active, and it is pretty reliably handled through a lot of life reduction from full down to low life. That's because my 6-link Mana Forge setup is on a life tap support. Not because of Blood Rage or anything else, really. Not because of mastery that makes my attacks cost life. Nothing. It's all from the 6-link Mana Forge setup that has Ice Shot and Lightning Arrow on it. And that is enough to really keep my life in check. I don't even have to, like, not quality my Divination Distillate or anything like that. I can just go full shebang here. Well, it's nice to duplicate Gambler cards, but would love to see a better card than that. Doesn't really matter for the sake of this video. I think we're almost done here. You can see it's pretty fast, about 5 minutes to do this without Winged Scarab. Still able to shield charge. Another nice thing is I'm able to do shield charging around now. And one thing I almost forgot to mention, you might have noticed the loyalty tattoo, or we're going to talk about loyalty tattoo again. You may have to rewind the footage here, but you would have seen an odd choice, or maybe you probably didn't notice, but you might want to rewind the footage and check that out after the video, after we talk a bit about the loyalty tattoo, which I'm honestly not going to get into until we look at the passives. It's going to be a few minutes from now. All right, so I don't know. I'm not going to worry about looting the map for now, trying to make the video. So that is pretty clean kill. Clear, rather. And you can see I wasn't really subject to dying much. My health did go down a bit, usually from shooting too many arrows, because as I shoot arrows, my life depletes pretty quickly, right? But then, you know, my leech and all that sends it back up. But anyway, let's get into more about how the build works. So we're going to start with gear here. And we will begin with the weapon swap here. So I am going with Advanced Fortress for all the added defense, especially 44 life on hit. I do not have life on hit on my core character, so only get life on hit with the claw. Get a whole bunch of extra block chance, which is a pretty big deal, because over here I get 99 life when I block. I used to use evasion base, but then I realized the life on block was huge, and I can't use grace anyway, so I got to take hits the whole time. Also, getting huge regen roll is nice for the Calm Spirit synergy there that my Quiver obviously doesn't have. Allows me to regenerate even more rage and spend more time in Berserk, moving even faster and having more defense more often while in shield form. Of course, a whole bunch of armor helps, and the main reason why I choose to focus so heavily on getting armor is because shield charge, of course, its damage and its ability to be effective in terms of damage, fortify, endurance charges, which has to do with links, is dependent on having a huge armor and or evasion based shield. Moving while bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage. It's actually a lifesaver in many cases where the maps roll enemies poison, bleed, and etc. Or whatever it is. Impale, I think it is. That really helps with that mod too. I used to run with increased attack speed, but I think it's a little more valuable this way. So that is the swap tech there. We also have, of course, the best bow in the game, at least until like yesterday when Spicy Sushi crafted a new one. I'll probably get it, but anyway, this is the bow right now. It is priced somewhere around, well, at the time I paid virtually 2 mirrors for it. At its price. And then of course the mirrored quiver, which there are a lot of different fizz variant quivers. I did not need cold convert because I'm converting everything through the tornado shot gem here. Now 69% fizz is random element, and then the rest is through the Watcher's Eye. So getting double crit with the fizz gained as extra random element was the best bet here, and I needed a benchcraft here because I need the strength and intelligence rolls for a rational doctrine jewel that is involved. We'll talk a little more about that when we get into the passives and the jewels. Anyway, best quiver in the game for now. It's almost perfect, honestly, except it's rolls, and I think it's 1 tier off on one of the implicits. Then we got, let's see, I guess we'll get into Mage Blood, the other major item here. So 5% quant Mage Blood. At the time, I paid over a mirror for it. I mean, I wouldn't sell this for anything less than 2 mirrors, even though it's just 3 magic utility flasks. Probably came out of the Insane Cat turn-in. It's item level 84. Game pre-corrupted, happened to get the best corruption in the game when it was turned in. And it's, yeah, probably worth about 2 mirrors. So basically, we already got almost 5 mirrors worth of gear in 3 items. And those are the 3 big ones. Everything else included is somewhere about 2 or 3 mirrors additional. But there are no other mirrored items that I have. Calm Spirit with the best 2 double corrupts for me. Crit chance would be pretty big, but I like +1 socketed gems. And that has to do with the enhanced support, getting enhanced even further. Is good. I do not have an Awaken Enhance as of yet. That will be one tiny improvement that I can make to the build. Also have Gold Worms with max endurance charges and regen for the Berserk, of course. And max endurance charges is kind of nifty because I am getting endurance charges through Enduring Cry as well as through the weapon swap tech, which we'll get into in a moment. Also running Greed's Embrace as a quintessential Magic Find chest. Don't need the extra power. Already got plenty of movement speed with Mage Blood, so it's fine to run this one. It hurts to lose the lightning res in particular, but we can kind of get around that anyway. Now, the helmet, I ran a couple different iterations. I know people are going to ask me, why don't you have Tornado Shot enchant on? Well, for one thing, the ghosting strat, I wouldn't make any usage of that enchant. But with the increased Berserk effect, I do make use of the enchant throughout the entire map run, whether I'm ghosting or doing damage. So that's one big reason. Another reason is because it's just overkill anyway. I'd rather move faster and have more defense and do more damage, just broadly speaking, is probably better anyway. Plus, I'm using fork support and not chain support, and you may or may not know that fork support can't even fork all the different initial splits anyway. So it's a little bit of a rub there. But anyway, this is the helmet. I needed the massive accuracy roll because I can't run precision without Sublime Vision. Last league, I got around that with a couple of really high tier accuracies. Abyss jewels, but I couldn't fit in that much this time, so went ahead and biting the bullet, getting the accuracy roll. No regen on here this time, going full rarity, almost perfectly rolled here with of course the mana reservation efficiency minus cost reduction to attacks, which is very important. I still have 12 mana per attack. That is without a flask enchant, by the way. No reduced mana cost on the flask. The amulets, I'm swapping between Defiance of Destiny. You don't need this corruption, by the way. I'm just messing around, double corrupting these because for the hell of it, doesn't really get much out of this one. I would love to have increased chance to block corruption on this, actually. But anyway, I decided to personally craft a Simplex amulet. It's a toss-up between this or the Eyes of the Great Wolf. They have different ramifications. Extra life would obviously make me a lot tankier with Progenesis and Petrified Blood. It would give me more rage regen through all the percent life regen that I have. Or the Simplex amulet just basically gives me like 25% more DPS across the board while sacrificing some quantity and life as opposed to the Eyes of the Great Wolf. I have been favoring the Simplex, but honestly, I recognize these two are about on par. You could have a crit damage or crit multi-quantity Great Wolf. I don't have that. But anyway, there are some options there, but I'm kind of proud of this amulet, and I'm actually going to make a separate video on how I crafted this and some other options on it. I think people are kind of sleeping on this amulet. It's simultaneously easier and harder to craft than your average 6-modded amulet. So we'll talk about that in another video sometime. But anyway, just wanted to show you out there. I ended up paying like 200 or 300 divines to craft this, by the way. So I did mention about 5 mirrors worth in these 3 items. The boots and the gloves are each about 50 divines. The helmet's about 100 divines. The chest is about 100 divines. The amulet's 200 divines. This Ventor's Gamble with this kind of roll on here, which the most important resistances where they are, and that life roll, this is probably a 200, 300 divine Ventor. And then Pariah is basically nothing, though. That's like the one cheap item that I have. So you can see a lot of currency went into the gear there. The flasks are relatively cheap. Progenesis is the only one that's really an expense there. Getting the regen for the silver flask, and then not running a rarity flask, and that's because I need permaphasing for the ghosting. Now I could get that with a haste Watcher's Eye, or I can just run a quartz flask, sacrifice the prefix roll on this, and I would also get some extra suppression, which is really nice. I felt like this was some great value to substitute the rarity flask for a quartz flask and just sacrifice 30% rarity prefix for all of the permaphasing and the suppression. Terrific value. The only major change to my setup last league. Of course, the percent regen there. I have 13.5% life regen, and then 100 life regen. So almost 0 forms of flat regen. I also have flat regen when I switch to shield though. So getting the increased life pool, like I said, with the Eyes of the Great Wolf, kind of a big deal for the regen. So it is a very good setup to have a Great Wolf this way. Honestly, probably even better than going the pure damage route. So that is it for the gear. Now, I will go over the jewels in a second, but let's go over the gems. Quick reminder, going to fly through this because I already made a video on the links here. Fortify through the Advancing Fortress. Shield charge connected to melee stun, as long as I'm doing enough damage. Have a high enough armor-based shield. And then Divergent stun for a whole bunch of regen. Amazing, just absolutely amazing tech that I discovered this league, and honestly don't see myself moving away from it anytime soon. Also, the links here are a little interesting. Anomalous Immortal Call, cast and damage taken support, which is curious because when I swap back I'm using Steel Skin. So these all do have separate cooldowns, but prioritizing Immortal Call with the moving while bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage, so getting around it that way. And then just purely Steel Skin whenever I'm on the other side because I don't have endurance charges quite as reliably on that side. So really cool, interesting thing going on there. Phantasmal Purifying Flame. So you might be going, what the heck is this? This is because for the Rational Doctrine jewel that I have, which we'll see in a minute later, in order for me to get Consecrated Ground permanently, my strength has to be the highest stat. It is when I have a bow and a quiver equipped, but whenever I don't, it no longer is. And suddenly I don't have permanent Consecrated Ground. This helps get around that by allowing me to Consecrate Ground when taking damage, and it's semi-reliable, not super great. And it just helps me keep Berserk at higher uptime during the ghosting phase. No kind of curious links there. That's it for the weapon swap tech. We have the main link, Anomalous Tornado Shot 2123 here. Helps with Trinity support because I'm doing really heavy load on cold. And so if I don't have the 23 quality here, it can be a bit of a problem. Crit damage support, very good, very strong, especially when you start taking ultra downsides. Trinity support, of course, the highest damage, if you're able to make usage of it, which I am with the normal Anomalous Tornado Shot. I know some people prefer pure cold conversion Tornado Shot. I don't. I like the extra shock. I don't care about Ignite, of course. But knowing how powerful Trinity is and knowing how great shock is, and if you're not running Heat Shiver, I feel like the Fizz to random conversion is probably, element conversion is probably best. Moving on, we got Inspiration support. Again, got to drive down the cost of Tornado Shot somehow. It's pretty normal length there. And then Awaken Elemental Damage with attack support and Fork. So Fork or Chain, I already kind of talked about this a little bit, especially in Crimson Temple. Well, both are kind of good, both kind of bad. But anyway, Fork is better, way better for single target. Fork is also going to actually work with Ensnaring Arrow sometimes. Whereas if I have 4 copies of Chain with Ricochet, it's not going to work. Ensnaring Arrow will never work. But anyway, I decided to go with Fork. Oh yeah, and because of the change in the enchant up top, where Chain would detect the Tornado Shot enchant, whereas Fork doesn't benefit from it. Decided to go ahead and go with Fork in this case, and no regrets. I think it's good. I think both are fine, honestly. Then we also, as far as damage, continue on having a Frenzy, Mana Forge Arrow support with Frenzy and Power Charge on crit, so that's where we're getting Frenzy Charge, Power Charge, crit, and Ensnaring Arrow for a whole bunch of extra damage against bosses or major targets. Yeah, I have a Chain. It can ricochet off the wall, come back, and ensnare. I believe that's how it works. And so a lot of people who are running Tornado Shot Deadeyes are using this 4-link. Not uncommon. What is uncommon is this whopper of a 6-link here. Let's take a look here. We've got Mana Forge Arrow support with Divergent Lightning Arrow to make sure I get the full, because I need an excess of 31 or I need sorry, I need at least 69% lightning conversion, I think, or 67% with my current Watcher's Eye roll conversion. Then Ice Shot, which is also converting up. Oh, actually, I guess I might be short on that conversion from Ice Shot. I may need to look into getting the Ice Shot that gives me more conversion, actually. And then Divergent Hypothermia support. Interesting one. Getting an extra 4% cold pen on everything thanks to this connection with Ice Shot. Ice Shot is going to help freeze and brittle on higher thresholds because of it's baked into the gem really hard. And Lightning Arrow is going to do the same for shock. And then return projectiles to help mimic what Vengeance Cascade did before. And then life tap support so it goes off always instead of just rarely or occasionally, which also in turn synergizes with Divination Distillate control on there. So that is a really cool 6th link, and definitely one of my proudest intuitive or inventive links of my gear. Definitely, I took zero inspiration off of PoE Ninja. Had to come up with this completely on my own. Didn't see anything even remotely like it last league or this league, but it is very similar to what I had last league anyway. Basically, just substituted hypothermia for, the anomalous projectile. I had burning arrow in last time, but I had scorched in, so it made sense to have burning arrow in. But anyway, just lightning arrow and Ice Shot. Damaging ones. Okay, then we got Mark on Hit, Sniper's Mark, very common. Enduring Cry and Seal Scan. So these just kind of the final links to the gear set. Oh yeah, also got Hatred. I like being able to crank it up a couple levels by putting it in Pariah. So that's where a Hatred gem is. Don't need to have an Enlighten. Don't need to have all kinds of different auras. I'm able to get all this extra damage in here. And this is why the build does so much damage. Because I don't even need to mess with throwing down ballistas. Nothing like that. I just get tons of raw damage for my decision to remove tons of gems that would normally be dedicated towards auras. Or maybe ballistas. Or both. Enduring Cry is able to fit in here thanks to this nice call to arms thing. It's something a lot of people are doing now there with the new tattoo system. So anyway, that is it for the gems. Whew. Let's go over the jewels first. All right, so we got the massive wheel, Thread of Hope. I double corrupted this. I was trying to hit some juicy corruptions for a while there. I did get a pretty good one here. And this is an immensely useful one with Hired Killer, with Quick Step, Weapon Artistry, a curious one that would go in there. Anyway, we got a lot of different value coming in the massive wheel there. We'll talk a little bit about those specific notables in a minute. My favorite, Elegant Hubris now, as of last league, for extremely efficient point allocation for 80% rarity total, with taking clean advantage of the Leech Mastery, and also getting ignore attribute requirements through Supreme Ostentation. Very good there. This is, I think, the most powerful, or the best overall Elegant Hubris when connected to the massive wheel that you can get in the game right now. The 80% shock avoidance goes in hand with Storm Shroud, and then the remaining 20% down here. Terrific way to make yourself elemental ailment immune. I think there's no reason to run Purity of Elements if you're using Elegant Hubris, really ever, because it's just so convenient to do all that through a Storm Shroud. Unless for some reason you just really can't afford the extra jewel. And it is kind of jewel starved, which is why I'm running it one passive voices, which is also another item that's worth upwards of a mirror. Just the one passive voices there. Then we got the Sublime Vision and double Hatred Watcher's Eye, now over 200 divines a piece there. This is at over 100 divines. This jewel here is at least 100 divines now. With this corruption, this is probably 100 divines. The Inspired Learning with reduced effective curses, also on Storm Shroud, and then quasi-perma Consecrated Ground puts me at 98% reduction to curses. Really great way to kind of fulfill that all the way through. Don't need it on a suffix on my flask anywhere. So that is great. So this is, in fact, a Mage Blood Inspired Learning build. And I typically run around with 10 to 20 Inspired Learning buffs when I'm moving at full breakneck pace in maps. Down here, we have the quintessential double Leech Martial Prowess large cluster for bow builds. I would say this corruption is a little bit fortunate, but I was running an Inspired Learning that had Corrupted Blood immunity anyway. yeah, I just happened to hit jackpot on the corruption on this, and because I'm just floating currency, so I was double corrupting a lot of things. Changed my minds recently about what I was doing with the medium clusters, but anyway, we got we're unlocking double damage. It's important to do this for a couple reasons. One, for damage, and then also for getting higher ailment threshold, higher shocks, higher freezes, higher brittle, unlocking those. So it's a good idea to get double damage somewhere in your build, even if it's a low % chance. And then also the Spike Concoction Special Reserve, so for a lot of extra damage, some regen in there. You'll notice that I was prioritizing in Tier 1 Intelligence role. And that's because... Actually, hold off on that in a second. I'll talk about that one last. And then getting some extra accuracy to make it a nice, cleaner overall build. A lot of life, a lot of extra damage. Really powerful Searching Eye Jewel here. I could play without the accuracy roll because I have blind in the build, which puts me at 100% if I'm blinding. But I like having it clean. I have 90. Basically, I have like... I think against standard bosses and regular mobs, I have 100% chance. I may think about changing this out for no accuracy, though, considering I do have blind. The final jewel I want to talk about is Rational Doctrine. This is brand new this league, which was not really available to us last time. It's convenient enough to do with Supreme Ostentation, but for bow builds who are forced to take all of these dexterity nodes, doesn't really work for us. This is essentially Inquisitor Strength Tech that is now unlocked for Ranger builds. Thanks to the tattoo system, it is, and even against the will of Mageblood here, which is a huge dex roll. Kind of annoying. We can now get our mana, our intelligence and strength to be the same and higher than dex. And so I did that mainly through not selecting finesse, like I normally do, not selecting Path of the Hunger, still selecting Blood Siphon, getting the 10 intelligence here, but you can see I decided to go for a loyalty tattoo, and then getting the remainder through the synth implicit 4 here, 8 here, 8 here, made up for the 20, and that's how I managed to get all of that squared away. So that was one of the hardest things to pull off. I blew, I think, over 100 divines crafting both of these, self-crafted, because I really needed them to be rolled that way. So that's it for the jewels. Now let's just stick on the passives here since we're already here. And we'll start with tattoos here since they're the small ones. So I do have 5% chance to blind. It's a good idea to do that. You hit a breakpoint with 5% effective marks, so you get an extra projectile secondary projectile if you put 5% effective marks on here for most builds. Then I went with Loyalty Tattoo of Mata. This is the one that whenever you encounter a unique enemy and you're at low life, you get passive flask charge regen, which is actually extremely useful for ghosting. I was dismayed to discover, literally today, that it doesn't work with ghosts. It doesn't actually work with ghosts, even though they're unique enemies. I guess they're counted as allies, maybe, with the keystone that I'm using. I don't know, but I still get to proc this whenever I kill the map boss, still get to proc it whenever I'm opening strong boxes, with rogue exiles, with other unique bosses floating in the map. Still get the passive regen. It's really still good for ghosting. It's useful, and I'm glad to have... Oh, and towards the end of the map, whenever you don't have much stuff left, but a few strong boxes can be very useful for that too, to help sustain. Both Divination Distillate and Progenesis are quite important to have charges for both of those flasks at any point in the map. And so it really helps with that. I'm glad I switched to it, and it was one of the very most recent things that I did to my build, was squeezing that in. To this is an intelligence node, the only one that we have. I was able to save points by not taking charisma because I'm only running one aura. And, I did for a second there try to run Supreme Ego. It required me to do Reservation Efficiency or muck up the whole build. It actually created problems with Trinity support because Hatred got so powerful that Trinity was getting overridden by too much cold. And it was also causing me a lot of stress on my point allocation. I was having to drop this mastery, for example. I have to drop all kinds of things. So I decided to not make this a Supreme Ego build. The ultimate goal was to make a Supreme Ego, but I decided not to. Supreme Ego also gets, I think, somewhat bricked by the map mod, reduced effect of auras, non-curse auras on you anyway. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why Supreme Ego is not really that supreme. Not that important. I could have also simply dropped my Blood and Sand, but guess what? 55% increased projectile speed and damage is actually worth more. Oh yeah, just realized I forgot to talk about this link here. So this is Anomalous Berserk, lower cooldown, Anomalous Blood and Sand for increased projectile speed and damage, and Petrified Blood, which can be swapped out with Steel Skin if you need the reservation, but get a little bit less damage taken over time this way. So, whoops, retroactively talking about this 4-link here. Anyway, yeah, pretty cool 4-link. I did the exact same thing last time, I think, with my build last league. All right, so the tattoos, the remaining tattoos, I was 5% spell suppressed away from cap, so, you know, I could have put a couple points in here, right? Or I guess 1 point in here. Well, why do that? We can just get 3 tattoos, I guess. Although 24% projectile speed might be better. I don't know. Points are hard to come by. I think I'll just save the points. Then every single... Oh, yeah, one more thing. Permanent stun immunity and block stun immunity. Actually need to have that for ghosting, so the chance to avoid being stunned. Super important. I don't know what I'm going to do in future leagues with ghosting without these tattoos, but because I used to get the enchant on boots. But that only works recently after kill. Which, well, I guess I am kind of killing a lot now with my shield charge. It does so much damage. But anyway, yeah, 100% stun avoidance. 5 tattoos. The remaining tattoos, not counting the major ones here, are projectile speed. Completely overpowered projectile speed. This league, not really that many tattoos were devoted to it, however. Of course, we have a couple massive tattoos here with increased projectile, which is very easy to do if you're getting the tattoo for Call to Arms. And yeah, it cost me 1 point here, and basically that's it. And then down here, I spent 1 point here. Could get Frenzy, Max Frenzy, but I decided to not get that one there. Okay, so that is it for the tattoos. While we're already on the topic of extra projectile, might as well mention Master Flexure and Multi-Shot. Extra projectiles now. This attack mastery is ultra underrated, especially the way I play. I jump into the fray and then start just blitzing everything down to point blank range, because I am actually taking point blank, which I think is still warranted and good. Whenever you need the damage, you can do the damage, get in the face of it, shotgun it down with tornado shot. And if you have a bunch of enemies standing near you, it's even more powerful. So I really wanted this attack mastery, so yes, it's worth taking the 4 points to get this. You know, these are really good points with the crit chance, crit damage, but less valuable when I'm running Brittle for pure crit chance. So I think it's worth more to do the extra arrow. You could go ahead and do both, but I want to save points somewhere, preferably. Anyway, that's it for the additional arrow. Life is a major part of this build. With Progenesis and Petrified Blood, I need a big life pool. 1, 2, not that one there, 3, 4 major life wheels taken. And the two good life masteries are involved as well. The fact that my flask recovery rate is higher with this Divination Distillate is fine, unlike most builds that are relying heavily on Blood Rage to drive down Divination Distillate. I don't have to worry about that, so I can actually take Herbalism and get the full benefit of this very nice 22% increased life for the price of 3 notables. Suppression evened out there. I mentioned 95% suppress capped. That's thanks to the increased effect of a quartz flask on top of the normal stuff here. I went ahead and took this mastery there, and then 3 tattoos on top of entrenched and inveterate. Voila. Suppress cap. Easy. I was taking Honor Tattoo of the Mountain here for increased endurance charges, but I decided to opt out of that. It wasn't really worth the 1 point anymore. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the points around the Massive Wheel. One of the more questionable or intriguing points here is Weapon Artistry. I actually make usage of this both in the ghosting phase and in the main phase, but I don't get anything except for 8% attack speed during the kill phase. So maybe you could say this is the least valuable point, but I think it's quirky, it's cool, it double dips in usefulness, so I think it's kind of nice to have that. Typical, you know, aspect of links so good. Forces of Nature, one of the strongest ones there. The connectors to the Elegant Hubris, extremely powerful. Blood Siphon, very good still. Preservation Efficiency, if I need it, good percent life for 1 point. That's all of the Massive Wheel there. As usual, extremely valuable points in there. As far as the Elegant Hubris is here, we got 15% attack speed for 1 point, 80% projectile speed for 2 points, projectile damage rather, 80% more projectile damage, 1 point, 40% rarity, 2 points, 40% rarity, 1 point, 80% shock avoidance, 1 point, and Supreme Ostentation, 2 points. So, yep, that's what the Elegant Hubris is giving. Let's see. Crit damage, of course. We're going to be going lethality the long way for the extra crit multi, since Brittle is helping me stay crit capped. And then we also have Heartseeker, especially with shock relying more on lightning arrow that's not connected to a whole bunch of support gems. For damage, it's really valuable to get the increased effect of non-damaging elements, I think. From this mastery, I'm a big believer in it. Getting the extra accuracy, really good too. Getting the extra, yeah, kind of needed actually for this build to work around no precision. And what else is there here? Let's see. That's just about everything. Oh yeah, I was running a Calm Spirit with Elemental Weakness and Whispers of Doom anointed here. However, I did ultimately decide to spend 5 points to get these right here with even more increased elemental ailment threshold and get the inverted points. I noticed that when I was running maps where the monsters had elemental resistances, it really did feel quite a bit tankier. This helps kind of eliminate that map mod from causing any major issue because it not only makes you do extra damage, it makes you do like max ailment threshold whenever it lands on the inverted resistances. And Primeval Force is a lot of value. I mean, these are still somewhat valuable points anyway. So I decided it was worth getting those points. And then, yeah, everything else is, as you can see, just kind of the usual. I think I hit every single point. Of course, the Ascendancy is Deadeye, and I'm going Ricochet into Endless Munitions, not doing Far Shot. I could do Far Shot, I guess, but I decided Endless Munitions with Gathering Winds and Focal Point. Very standard, the most popular setup there on the Deadeye. Woo! So that is all the passives. Now, we'll take you down to the path of building. I'm going to start with calculations on the shield charge side. So I have everything set up for shield charge. You see I'm actually doing 200k damage, which is pretty crazy. That's why the cannon fodder white mobs before any altars or anything major in the map is unleashed. They take real damage. So the stun works, the endurance charges are gained, the fortify is actually pretty reliable, especially without delirium on the map initially. That's enough damage. You can see the breakdown here. A lot of Fizz is extra cold from Hatred. And you can see I cannot run Fizz Reflect maps because of shield charge, primarily. So, you know, I could run Fizz Reflect maps and never shield charge, I guess, but then I wouldn't really be ghosting, and anyway, that's not really something I want to do, so I just don't run Physical Reflect maps. Kind of important to note here that I got 70k effective hit pool with this setup. I got 12 rage regen per second approximately. I did go ahead and sort of add in the average regen from Enduring Cry, by the way. So that's why that seems a little bit high. And max physical hit, 30k. Sacrificed a few things in this build. Again, a lot of moving parts, hard to make the build work. Minus Chaos Res for this build. However, I am taking the Pantheon for Soul of Our Kali, which gives me some Chaos damage over time. 40 effective, 40 resistance against it. So I do have positive Chaos Res when it's damage over time, at least. Plus 10% less damage over time taken. It's very useful and good for this build since it's so weak against those things. Hardly any evasion chance, as you can see. Hardly any armor, as you can see. So the major defensive layers are going to be Progenesis, decent sized life pool for this archetype, Petrified Blood, Fortify, Endurance charges, and a shield. And a whole bunch of life on hit or life on block, a bunch of leech at play. So a lot going on here, and that's the reason why I was able to do that otherwise kind of challenging map without falling right over. Even when we switch things over. Oh yeah, and that's with the Defiance of Destiny with a major help here for this special mod here. When we switch this over, switch the weapon swap or weapon set back over here, and we put Tornado Shot in, 105 million DPS. to the way I normally set things up. Now, we'll look at the config in a second here, but this is where all the numbers are coming from. You can see that cold is overriding everything else. So I was kind of curious, how is Trinity support even working here? Well, that has to do with the way the breakdowns and calculations is with the random element conversion and double damage coming into play. Makes Trinity support pretty reliable, actually. I would say it's like 90% reliable. You can replay the map to see for sure. Critical strike chance, 100%. Crit multi, 5.32. Very strong there. We got 90% item quantity, 98% with an Eyes of Great Wolf, 389 or plus 60 against rare and unique enemies on the rarity. So that's where those numbers are coming from. But you can see everything's looking pretty solid right here. A lot of damage, a lot of power charges, frenzy charges, inspiration charges, onslaught, tailwind, alchemist mark, ensnared, ice shot, lightning, sniper's mark. So all of this also, oh yeah, berserk in play as well. A lot of buffs active for this calculation, but I like to showcase an active config, or what you would expect with like everything active. So let's see where this is all coming from here. Always moving, right, for the regen, the rage regen. Life tap, tiny bit of extra damage. I got the endurance charges, power charges, frenzy. Those are, of course, quite reliable. Gale force, very reliable. Onslaught on 100% of the time. Phasing as well. Fortify, I can be... You obviously see me take a big hit in my effective hit pool. I can be fortifying through the major clear part of the map or not, depending on kind of how I'm playing. Tailwind, Alchemist, Genius, Rage 50, and not all the time, but could have 50 Rage with Berserk active as well. You need to have at least like 8 or 9 Rage per second to even reach 50 Rage with Berserk up. Leeching, if I'm not leeching, no leech map, do a lot less damage. Consecrated Ground, always a lot of Rage regen there. And then nearby enemies 1, that's from the mastery right here. So this is again kind of set up like a single target Guardian Pinnacle boss. These buffs would not all be active during that time, but I don't know, I'm trying to split the baby here. Guardian Pinnacle boss with mapping config. Something, I don't know. Crit recently, yep. Okay, killed recently, yep. The Abyss Jewel, I think, relevant for that. All Trinity stacks up, Sand's stance for the Blood and Sand. In Snare stack 1, you can see if I drop it down, I lose a lot of damage. Projectile distance, yeah, we can see if I take off point blank, that's a lot of damage. Gone, so that's a little bit elevated damage there. Chilled, frozen, brittle. Without brittle, suddenly my crit chance is 64%. So I don't need to hit max brittle threshold, but I do need to hit pretty good. Well, I guess actually right here it does say max brittle. That's okay. So anyway, shocked 50%. If the enemy's not shocked, that's a lot less damage. The enemy will not often be max shock, but anyway, if it is, there it is. Profane Ground, huge damage increase. Where does that come from? That comes from this jewel here. Profane Ground is going off right and left thanks to intelligence also being the highest element or highest attribute that I have in the build by design. Now, if we move these numbers over to standard boss or no boss, we can see they obviously go up a fair bit. But anyway, this is the POB. This is the Brittling, Magic Find, Tornado Shot, Deadeye right there. All right, so probably missed a thing or two in what I wanted to talk about, but hopefully we caught just about everything. We will go ahead and conclude the video with any and all final thoughts. I'm going to continue using this build, improving it ever so slightly as I continue farming for more currency, which I'm naturally going to do if I'm doing 1,000 Crimson Temple maps, which I guess this video is aptly timed just before that came out. This is the character that will do that. And yeah, I'm able to do ghosting, full clear for the altars, and then full strongbox clear, maximum investment in about 6 or maybe 7 minutes flat. Which is pretty impressive, I think, with this build. I think this is a really, really impressive build. The fact that it's doing like 4 times as much damage as the Lightning Arrow build was doing last league, and that's with a crucibled mirrored weapon on top of Ancient Cascade. Wow, that is quite impressive. No crucible this time, but still doing wacky high damage. This really does help illuminate to the audience, hopefully, the power of absolute ultra endgame budget fizz to element conversion tornado shot. Why tornado shot? It's just so much stronger than lightning arrow potentially, because with tornado shot I'm able to put in for the projectile count 10. I have 10, and you can see if I were to play with one projectile, my damage would be a tiny fraction of what it is. But thanks to the shotgunning effect, 10 projectiles, lightning arrow with the back and forth with anomalous return projectiles, 2 with the max. And so, you know, they're not actually adding a lot of damage on the sheet, but in a practical, clear sense, lightning arrow is very strong. And then frenzy, you know, that's just adding a little bit of damage, mainly there for the charges, of course. But anyway, that's it for this video. I want to know what you think about this build, especially if you're someone who's trying to replicate it. I'd say I'm a little skeptical that people are really going to be able to replicate this build. But my best of luck to you if you are. Otherwise, you know, I hope you just simply enjoyed what this build looks like, and I'm certainly enjoying playing it. It is, again, a very active build that involves a lot of, you know, moving around like this and stuff like that. I'm playing the game a little harder than I have to, you could say, especially with this kind of gear set and budget. But that is the way I like to play, at least some of the time. So that is it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.